So I think I'd like to hear from Saddick first. Sometimes he can be very controversial. so, I mean, how do you even start? That this is Ghana, this is the Black Stars.
Thank you very much again, Samson. Like you mentioned, how do you start? It's difficult accepting the position that we are today. Very difficult, especially for some of us who are passionate lovers of soccer and Ghana's national team before becoming professional journalists. So it's difficult to separate what it used to be and what the situation is now. And also especially at a point where the various sectors of our football, the Black Stars used to be the facade, the last remaining objects that truly showed that the Ghana football was in a good light, has finally gone down. So this is a systemic failure. The other departments have been collapsing over the years. It didn't start today. And the Black Stars used to be what held everything together. So there was an extreme injection of funds, even against good advice. There was an extreme focus on the Black Stars. There was an incessant defense of what people wanted to do with the Black Stars because all the other foundation or pillars had broken, with the exception of the Black Stars. So whatever situation, regardless of the amount, we need to put the Black Stars in a state that will appear or for people to assume things are well with Ghana football. But then when it finally hit, all the cables went off and they finally hit the Black Stars, everything has come crashing down. And it's embarrassing, very embarrassing, especially also when you mentioned there were 8 teams competing for the AFCON to 12 teams. It used to be 4 teams to 8 to 12 to 16. Now, more than half of the continent participate to compete at the African Cup of Nations. So even the poorest of teams, or those we used to know had no talent, with little push will qualify, have all overtaken the Black Stars. So if 46, 47 teams are competing, let's say 50 teams out of the 54 are competing in the qualification process and you do not make it, it really paints a very gloom picture of the state of your football.
When you hear foreign commentators, experts say that we're simply wasting talents, does that mean that the playing team is not to blame in this?
Absolutely not. I am one of the people who think that coaching at the Black Stars, coaching and playing body, has got nothing to do with the challenges that we have, because the factors or the facts are very bare. You have the players play week in, week out in the topmost leagues in the world, and they come here to play, and you want to sit back and say, are these really the players who were playing in the English Premier League last week? Is this a guy who scored in the Spanish La Liga last week? So you can separate it from the players not being talented to an institutional framework that doesn't function as it should. Because I heard the coach, Otuado, finally subscribing to the fact that Ghana doesn't have talent. And I said, you are in a group with Sudan, Niger, and Angola. So not having talent should not be an issue. If you are in a group with Brazil or England or Spain or Germany, that would have been a factor. That would have been an excuse. But if you are in a group with Sudan, Niger, Angola, talent should not be an issue. We have the top 3 dribblers in the English Premier League at this point. The best 3 dribblers in the most competitive league in the world are all Ghanaians. The top 3 dribblers, people who can overtake the best and the most atrocious of defenders. The top 3 in the English Premier League are not Brazilians. They are not Portuguese. They are not Spanish. All top 3 are Ghanaians. And this has been consistent. Sometimes, but the best defender in the league in terms of blocks was a Ghanaian 2 years ago. French league, Spanish league. the talent is spread across. Even back home, you watch on grassless pitches, and I speak to some of these top agents, including likes of the Right to Dream owner, and they say Ghana is only scratching the surface of the talent base. We are only scratching the surface of the talent base that we have. So talent has never been an issue. Our issue is an administrative failure and mismanagement, purely.
Specific to our recent outing that has brought us to this discussion, right. What do you think went wrong?
It went wrong long before the results happened. It's been coming. I'm sure we were in this studio almost 9 months ago. So all the factors that we mentioned, we saw it coming, because from round 16 to elimination in the group stages consecutively, the only option or the only available level for us was to not qualify. And when we sounded the alarm bells, there were so many name calling and other. What went wrong is that we have refused to accept the fact that the problems around the team are not what the authorities think should be addressed. There are people who have refused to take responsibility. So we keep on changing coaches. There is an issue of mismanagement at the national teams. There is a very stark issue of conflict of interest that we have refused to admit, causing us. There is an issue of people not being merited in positions. There is an issue of inviting players who are not deserving. There is an issue of increasing interference in the invitation of players to the national teams. And the mismanagement, especially with the national teams, one of the key areas that we mentioned when we embarked on the demonstration 8 months ago was the fact that the national team management committees are only there in name. There is no substance. And that is the first thing the GFA has done today. When we called for the dissolution of the management 8 months ago, we were called names. Today, after the failure of the Black Stars to qualify, the GFA admits, and the first body that has been disbanded is the management committee. So it tells you that they refuse to admit to what were going wrong. The issue of management, the issue of conflict of interest, the lack of accountability, and the authorities refusing to accept what the actual problem is. And we will go in circles. Now, the next place to go, before the qualification of AFCON, there are matches played among teams like Chad, Eritrea, Somalia. That is the preliminary stage before you qualify. This is where we will struggle to now even make it from the prelim. So it is not an issue of the Black Stars failing to qualify. I want to situate it in the context of a bigger issue beyond the Black Stars qualification, and that is what we must address.
Okay.